Okay, well, we're right on the hour, so let's just dive straight in. I'm just conscious of time, and we've got a lot of material to cover. The obviously the topic for the call this evening is Google's most recently leaked quality rating guidelines. It's a 160-page document. If you haven't had the chance to take a look at it, I'll share a link with you at the end of this particular webinar so you can download it and take a closer look. But really what I wanted to do was pull out a few of the most important insights and what it actually means for you and how you should be changing the way that you're thinking about online marketing and SEO. A lot of the practices that people have been applying really are just a waste of time and money when it comes to trying to rank websites on Google. And part of that is just to do with fundamentally the way that Google's changing the game. So the goal itself of the webinar, I want you to, I suppose, walk away at the end of this and just recognize, hey, I can see the game has changed here. And maybe even identify a few of the things that you've been doing wrong currently up until this point. So that way you can put a stop to those. And I'll give you some steps that you can take to triple your traffic. And this is something that we've done both for our clients and also people who've gone through the Authority Content Workshop. These principles, once they've been applied, it's actually worked a lot more effectively than that. Like I say triple your traffic, but it really depends on where you're at. I'll show you how we can attract those ideal clients and work with Google, at least the new Google, to make sure that we stay on the right side of them. So obviously for those of you who don't know me, my name's David Jennings. I run a company called Melbourne SEO Services. We've been doing this for many years now, and I'm going to share with you some of my best stuff. So the big takeaways that you're going to get from here, will look at the quality guidelines and see how they can help predict where Google's headed. A lot of what Google does is usually they'll release guidelines like this, and then this is what they try and automate and then move into their ranking algorithm. So this is a bit of an insight. I'll share with you the checklist that we use, and I'll talk about the 3 core areas that you need to get right. Otherwise you just won't get any visibility. And if you stay right till the end, I'll give you a link where you can download the PDF for the 20-point authority checklist and also those guidelines as well. What I'm going to go through, I suppose, it's not for everybody, and part of it is needing to recognize that SEO has changed. I'm seeing this all the time where people are still SEOing sites and trying to market online as though it's 2008, but it's 2014 and a lot has changed. So you need to make sure that you update your tactics and methods, otherwise you're just going to get no visibility. So if you've got a business and you've got a great product or service, this can work really, really well for you. It's not necessarily a magic button or anything like that. I think marketing well and marketing online takes work, but the rewards are really there and they're worth it. So if you accept that Google has changed and you understand that there's no magic bullet or magic button that you can press, I can give you the step-by-step framework that you can go through, and we can draw all of these insights from Google's most recent guidelines, but then you're going to have to take it through to actual implementation. And the reason I say that, I suppose, I'm just not getting any traction and nothing seems to have happened. And part of the reason, when we kind of dig into it, and particularly with this person I was chatting with earlier this week, we kind of had a little bit of a look around their website. Again, the SEO companies, they were approaching these new problems that's getting brought up with Google's algorithm with the same solutions that they've used in the past. And now it's a case of bad SEO can hurt you. So it can actually put you further and further in the hole. as long as you make that sort of recognition and understand, hey, something's actually changed, then that's when you can start to go, oh, okay, well, let's look at a new way to approach this. This particular presentation, it's not like one of my normal presentations in that usually I like to go for a little less bullets, but you'll see I actually had to go a little bit more heavy on some of the bullets and content, because I've done some screenshots and cut and paste directly from the guidelines themselves, so you'll have to excuse me for that, but I want to give you the slides afterwards so you can take a closer read at these as well, so don't feel that you need to note everything down. And my style typically in the past, for those of you who've seen, is a bit more like a machine gun. Sometimes I can just get on a roll and just keep firing bits of information one after the other. I'll try and make it a little bit more interactive, but on a webinar, sometimes it's hard to get a feel for it. So I'll let Camille keep a pulse on what's going on and feed that through to me. So let's get this party started and dig into this quality guidelines report. So this has actually happened a few times. Google has released, and they've done it I think at least 3 or 4 times, where these guidelines have been released. Now the most recent one, it's a 160-page document that's used just for internal staff at Google, and basically what they do is they use this document to help rank and determine what websites should be ranking for and where they should appear within the search engines. And they get manual reviewers to go through and actually look at search results pages and also websites. And then they take that data and they look for correlation between those websites that should be ranking and those that shouldn't, and then they feed it back into itself like a machine algorithm learning that just gets smarter and smarter. And that's why sometimes we'll see Google will make some suggestions on, hey, you should be doing this to follow Google's best practice, and sometimes you might look at a website and go, hang on, why is that website ranking above me? Google's come out and said that I should be doing this, this, and this, and I'm following those guidelines, and yet this website over here isn't, yet it's still ranking above me. And part of the reason for that is Google comes out with the guidelines for you to actually follow, but it needs to take time before it's filtered in, and they can actually turn it into the algorithm itself, and they can find mechanical ways to actually search for it. So basically what we've got here, these guidelines are some insight into the future of where Google's actually going, and the ranking and the factors that they consider important for ranking in the future. And it's only going to get more and more automated as they take this and start to refine it as they learn things. So that was my first real big insight. I kind of see this process, and it's happened more than once, where they'll actually first document what it is that they want for their guidelines, and they'll write it out and say, okay, a website that ranks should exhibit this criteria. Then step 2 is they prove that it works. So they'll give it to some quality raters, and they'll go out there and they'll review different websites, and then they'll take that back and push it into the search results and into this machine, and then they'll get some feedback from different users as people start to using the web. Hey, is this providing the type of results that we want? And then if it is, step 3 is then they automate it. So that 3-step process where they first document it, then they prove it, and then they automate it and push it into the algorithm. This is a process that they go through, and there was a time there where it felt like not really much was happening in the search engines. If we go back, 5 or 6 years ago, there was the longest period there where it felt like Google was doing nothing. And they came out with best practices, and we all knew things like, hey, you shouldn't be using white text on a white background, and you shouldn't be doing keyword stuffing, and we should make sure that we've got a variety of links from a variety of different sources. And Google came out and told us this. We saw it through Matt Kutz's videos that he posts on his YouTube channel, which is the Google Engineer, to give us some insight. So they tell us, hey, this is what you need to be doing. But there were plenty of examples when you'd look around and go, hey, but there are websites still using these tactics and ranking incredibly well. But then we had a period where Google sort of first documented it, then they proved that, hey, this is what they want, and then when they moved it through to automation, that's when we really started to see a lot of the fallout. Once they started to automate a lot of the things that became known part of the Penguin update, which really did a heavy analysis on backlinks and the way that people were linking to websites, then they also automated things that were happening on site, which was all around Panda and things like that. Once this became automated, that's when we started to see a big fallout of a lot of sites, because it was machine done as opposed to manually done. So following this same process, Google's been giving us hints as to what's actually coming. And I feel like we're right on the cusp of another big wave of changes. And these quality guidelines that we'll go through, and I'll pick out the most important points, indicates towards that. And also, earlier this year, we had Eric Schmidt from Google get out there and make a few quotes. It was actually an excerpt from a book that he's got coming out. And it was earlier this year. And rather than read it all out, I just want to focus in on a couple of key lines. This idea that the true cost of remaining anonymous then might actually be irrelevance. Even the most fascinating content, if tied to an anonymous profile, simply won't be seen because of its excessively low rank. Now, what we're really hearing here is Google basically saying it's that first thing where they actually document it and they tell us what they're looking for. It's this idea that you need to be seen as a verified online profile. You need to be seen as an author and an authority in a space. Otherwise, your content in the eyes of Google in the future will be considered irrelevant, and therefore will get an excessively low ranking and no visibility. So this is Google telling us what is actually coming. So the big three areas that we know about, we've obviously got the usability factors, which have already been automated. Usability is how people are engaging in your website, and that's part of the Panda algorithm update. Then we had, for the links analysis, that was the Penguin update. Again, that's been automated. And now, most recently, what the quality guidelines lean towards is something they're called EAT. Now we're in sort of step 2 of that 3-step process. First they document it, then they prove it, then they automate it. So they've actually documented it, and this is kind of like a huge trend that I think is really going to shake things up soon. So what does EAT actually stand for? EAT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And I've underlined a few lines here, and this is a direct screenshot from the quality guidelines themselves, basically saying high quality pages and websites need enough expertise to be authoritative and trustworthy on their topic. And then if we zoom a little bit further down, when we think in terms of expertise and authoritativeness, it's not that someone needs to have a formal education or specific training, but rather they just need to be recognized within their industry or within their community as having some expertise on a particular topic. So this here, and I wanted to lead with this because this sets the tone for what flows throughout the entire document. There's a real big emphasis here on this expert sort of authoritative and trustworthiness. It's this reputation, and the reputation, if you've got a good reputation, it's a case of all boats float on a rising tide. If you can get your reputation right, Google can be a little bit forgiving on some of these other things. And I mean, this is another direct quote and a screenshot here. You can see a very positive reputation can be a reason for a high rating for an otherwise medium page. What they're saying there is you can have a page that might not score so well on some of these other factors, but if it's got a high positive reputation, it'll actually lift the page quality up and give that website extra visibility online. So again, this really plays into what Eric Schmidt was talking about and why we need to start focusing in on building up your authority. And once we do that, all boats float on a rising tide. Let's focus on building up your authority and also focus on building up your expertise and your business's trustworthiness in a space. And if we can attach that to your website, everything on that website starts to lift up, all of the pages, because as it said, a positive reputation basically can turn a medium ranking website into a high ranking website. So how does the actual quality guidelines work, and it talks about this idea of an overall page quality rating scale. And while you don't need to read it, if you just think about that scale that just there, Google has a scoreboard to do with your website, and it has a whole lot of different categories and factors that it actually looks at. A lot of these are listed in the quality guidelines, and with all of these factors that it's comparing against, it'll get its quality raters, it'll give them some guidelines and get them to rank your website on this scale for these different factors, whether it's sort of lowest, low, medium, high, and then highest. And then it sums all of these together to then give you an overall sort of score for your website. And also there's an individual score for each individual page. Now, some factors are more important than others. Just as I talked about, that idea of a positive reputation really is one of these strong factors that can lift everything else up. So this idea of this scoreboard, this is where I think we need to start to be thinking about. And here's just a few a few excerpts, a few screenshots from the guidelines itself. And we can see here if a website's lacking in expertise, and it's got that EAT acronym there, we should basically, it's got here, should come from those with experience and everyday expertise. Now, if you're ranking low on that, everything else gets pulled down. There are some other factors here about, lacking in care and maintenance if you're not looking after your website, and no main content. Now, this is another big thread. They always keep on coming back to this idea of what is the main content of a page, and does it actually deliver and add value through to the user that is looking at that particular page. Again, all of these factors, they're kind of taking into account. As long as right now you get the concept, and I'll actually take you through my 20-point checklist that basically checks off the top 20 most factors that you need to be getting right. But as long as you just at the moment understand the way Google's ranking things and the way that we're getting a little bit of an insight into the future with the importance of authority, then we're going to be sort of putting ourselves in a situation where we'll be on that rising tide. So there is no magic button like there used to be when it comes to rankings. Previously, there were less factors that Google was taking into account. For example, the biggest trump card used to be links, and how many links could we send at a website, and with everything else being equal, even if you had a really bad sort of score on a whole lot of these other things, if you had enough links pointing to a page, it was enough to kind of still get it to rank. Now, because of all of these extra factors, there are a few more important ones than others, but what we actually want to do is try and tick as many of these boxes as we can. If you imagine like a little scorecard that Google's ranking your website on, and if we can tick as many of these as possible, it'll give us an overall score which can then lift our entire website. And that might actually be like, this is just step one. They haven't yet fully automated this, and that's why they've got these quality raters going in there and actually reviewing websites by hand. But that's why sometimes you might look at a website, and some of the factors I'm going to give you, you can look at your competition and you go, hey, I've got all of these checked items, and my website by rights, by following Google's guidelines, should be ranking higher. Yet I look at my competitor over here and he's ranking higher on all of these particular terms. And part of that has to do with it hasn't yet been rolled into the algorithm, and you're much better off, rather than looking for these little loopholes and corners to cut, to make sure that you actually start to follow Google's guidelines. And you'll find as different algorithm updates roll out, and when this authoritative algorithm rolls out, it's going to weed out a lot of your competition. So let's start planning for the future. Let's start, rather than cutting corners, let's just set a really solid foundation for what Google is looking for and build on something that's going to actually stand the test of time. So to do that, we're going to go through a little bit of an action plan in this 20-point checklist that I've got. the three areas that we need to think about now are our usability, our links, and building up that authority. Now, for those of you who went through the authority content workshop, I actually broke usability into two sections. There was usability and also the technicals of a website, like how quickly did it load, and do we have a sitemap, and is there no duplicate content, all of that sort of thing. Really, it just comes under the hub of what's actually happening on your website. That's the first thing that we need to get right, making sure that we've got all of the right signals for Google for what's happening on your website. Then we need to also analyze our links and make sure that we've got a well-rounded, healthy-looking link profile. And then the final piece is what we're seeing is how important this EAT acronym is, and this idea of building up the authority. So let's get into the 20-point checklist. As I mentioned, if you hang around till the end, I'll actually give you the link to download this, because I've got quite a lot of bullets because there are so many different points. I'll just list them all out, and then you can have a PDF where you can take it away. You can analyze your website against this particular checklist and write anything that's wrong, and then start to watch those rankings and that visibility come back. So the first points that we need to really focus in on this usability factor. This is all about Panda, and you'll notice EAT, the expert, authoritative, and trustworthiness, is actually filtered throughout all of these 20 points. I'll even give you little snapshots over there on the right hand side. They're snapshots to basically back up my checklist here. I used the quality guidelines report to help guide me as to what Google's actually looking for. So step one, we need to make sure that you've got a professional, modern, up-to-date website. If you haven't updated your website in the past sort of 3 to 4 years, I think step one is you really need to look to update your website. It needs to be mobile friendly so it loads quickly. You need to make sure that you've got a privacy policy set up on there, and you've got no duplicate content, and you analyze inside your Google Webmaster Tools and make sure that inside Google Webmaster Tools you haven't got any errors that haven't been addressed, like 404 pages and duplicate content and those sorts of things. That really is step one. Rather than going through an extensive list, I think choosing an up-to-date web design company, they should do a lot of this stuff as part of the basics. I mean, this really is modern day website building practice, and you can see over there Google talks about it as a functional page design. They want to make sure that each page has a purpose and it's well organized and well structured, and that's what they're looking for. Next point on the checklist is making sure that we follow best practice for our on-page SEO. And Google, I suppose, identifies here keyword stuffing as a big issue, and this is something that they actually identify. And if you've got some old school SEO and you've tried to really highly optimize for specific keywords, you can see just there, they've even bolded it. They said basically pages that have excessive keyword stuffing should be given the rating lowest. So that's a real clear sign. If you've got your on-page SEO wrong, that really could be a weight holding you down. The next thing is, point number 3 is having visible contact details, and that includes an About Us page as well. They say most websites, important ones, will have a Contact Us and an About Us page. This is just good quality signals of a website that really is trying to put their best foot forward and represent themselves and make sure that they're very easily contactable. So I would be adding as much contact information as I could to that contact page. I'd be adding phone numbers and contact us forms and addresses and anything that you can do, live chat, things like that. That's a real clear quality signal. Filling out your About Us page, I would tell your story and tell the background of the business as well. That shows that you're a real person, and also it helps to improve trust and let people connect with you. You also want to, for step number 5, is demonstrate your authority, and you can sort of I suppose feed this throughout your entire website, on your About Us page and everywhere. You want to have photos and videos and reference to yourself in the media and showing people that you're getting visibility and engagement from other people. You can see there on the right hand side, Google talks about this idea of a high level of those EAT, and pages basically needing enough expertise to be authoritative. So we want to feed all of that in to the pages themselves. So that's the first 5 points on the checklist. So as you go, just think about how your website stacks up. Is it modern and is it up to date? Do you have best practice SEO? Is your contact information visible and easy to get to if the client needs to? Are you telling your story and are you starting to demonstrate your authority? The next 5 that I've got here is we need to display case studies and reviews. You can see over on the right hand side, Google suggests that its quality raters go out there and look for customer reviews in ascertaining the reputation of an individual or a business. They're looking for this sort of information. So where you can, I would be encouraging your clients who've had a great experience with you to actually document and talk about the experience they've had with you. Display them on your website and make sure that you share them around the internet as well, wherever there's relevant review type websites for your industry. So if you're in travel or food or something like that, you should look to encouraging clients to post over on TripAdvisor and Urban Spoon and things like that. Another thing, this is interesting, this idea of a regularly maintained site, and it leads back to point 1 as well. Google's identified abandoned websites or pages that kind of look spammy. If a website is not maintained and updated and it's let go stale, it will start to drift down in the search engines. Google wants to see something that's being cared for and maintained and updated. Point number 8 on the checklist is having a growing body of work. Now, this is an interesting one. Now, it's not that you need to have a certain number of pages get added to your website, because Google identifies that not all websites are growing by the same amount. Some websites and some industries and some topics call for more frequent information. So if you're a news-related website, obviously you should be adding regular content, but other websites should grow a little bit slower. That said, when you think about it, every new page is a chance to go after another keyword. You want to have a process and a procedure in place to make sure that your website is constantly growing. I think that's absolutely key to have a content strategy. If you don't have a content strategy in place, you really don't have an SEO process in place. They really go hand in hand right now. Every page must be useful. This is another one of those core elements that flows through this entire document. Obviously, the expertise and authoritativeness and trustworthiness is one big one. If I was to pick another big theme, it's this idea of the main content. They call it MC for short. And it's important that the main content is of high quality and really helps to answer people's questions. So it must be useful. If you've got any sort of doorway pages on your website or pages that have thin or duplicate content, that will actually be doing you harm. So you want to actually start to remove that sort of information from your website. Then even though these next 2 items aren't called out specifically by Google in the quality guidelines, we're seeing a high correlation between websites that are ranking high and websites that exhibit both of these criteria. So video content at the moment is one of those low-hanging fruit. If you can incorporate video into your website, you'll find not only does it keep people more engaged on your website, which is a great quality signal in itself, but we can also use it to drive traffic through YouTube. So if you haven't got, as part of this growing body of ongoing content for your website, if you haven't got video as part of that, you need to start to put it in. It's still that low-hanging fruit right now. And then we've got checkpoint 11 is getting engagement and also some comments and shares and things like that. Good quality content gets engagement. So Again, even though Google doesn't necessarily spell out in the guidelines that engagement must be high, we see a high correlation between websites that have +1s on Google and those that are also ranking very highly. A very strong correlation. So if they're not taking a direct influence by it, there is still some correlation. So you're going to be best set up to try and get that engagement. So they're kind of the first few factors. I want to, I suppose, talk a little bit about links now. All of those first factors up until point 11 really covered Panda, which was everything that was happening on your website. Now the next few here are to do with links, and the first thing is Google's really keeping an eye on a website's reputation and also the reputation of individual users. So they want the experience of real users to help determine whether or not someone is an expert in their particular field. They also want to make sure that every piece of content, both on a website, is tied to an actual creator. They want to know who has created that content and who is taking ownership of it. And that's what leads into point number 12, because it's important. One of the ways that Google can apply ownership to particular content is through some of their properties. That's how Google gets to know who you are and finds out about your reputation. So it's an absolute must to make sure that you control your Google local profile, set up a YouTube channel and a Google Plus profile. And I know Google Plus is one of those things. It's just another social media platform that you're like, oh, I have to manage something else. But this one is absolutely key because it's owned by Google, and it's next to links. It's one of the highest correlations between high ranking sites is those that have +1s. A high number of Google +1s tend to correlate very highly to highly ranked websites. So you need to have that in place. You also need to look to have multiple social media channels. This engagement, this is about building up our authority in different spaces. I think this one as well helps us to diversify and become less single source dependent. If we can build up a community and have our prospects and clients engage with us on social media, that's a great way not to be so reliant. And Google has this process of looking around at other websites, and it kind of plays into number 14. They're looking for a natural link profile with a variety of links from a variety of different sources. And under that, on the right hand side, 2.7.2, they talk about some of the sources of reputation information and where they actually go to look to find out about your reputation as an individual and also as a business. So we need to make sure that we've got well-placed, high-quality content on these different places. And then checklist number 15 is our reputation management. We really need to be monitoring our own reputation, and Google will actually go out there and recommend that its quality raters go out there, and as they're researching your reputation and your website's reputation, they're looking for negative reviews, they're looking for positive reviews. Now, they understand that some businesses, all businesses, once they reach a certain size, will have some negative reviews, but on a whole, they want to be seeing a good positive reputation. So now more than ever, it's critical that you manage your reputation online. You want to be setting up Google alerts for your name, your business name, your brand terms, and monitoring what is getting said on the web about your business. And when someone does say something that might not be favorable, you need to be there with your response, because there's a very real chance that a quality reviewer will go by and read that and potentially give your website a low reputation if you've got that sort of information out there. So start to really monitor it. These first 15 checklist items are an absolute must. Every single website should be focusing on these. What we're doing is trying to go a step further, and as you know, I think one of my real skills and talents is the ability to spot trends and see where things are headed. And for our clients and also for our websites as well, we're trying to stay one step ahead. And here are an additional 5 items that I think you should consider. Once you've got those first 15 in place, then perhaps come back and start to work on these. So firstly, I would start to think about how you can work with authorities in your space. One of the quickest ways that you can build up your authority is to get a little bit of the authority rub off from other experts in your industry and in your space. So try and identify who those experts are and see how you can align yourself with them. See how you can work with them. See how you can help them. See how you can get your content on their website. That enables Google to then start to have some of this trust to start to filter over from their websites through to you. Point number 17, you want to think about building a list. I think the most important asset in any business ends up being your database and being able to have a list of past clients and also prospects. So if you're not already, we need to start to get some sort of name capture on your website that gives someone a reason to opt in. And it's not enough just to say, hey, opt in for this free newsletter or sign up to my free newsletter. Really give them something of value that's going to encourage them to want to opt in, and then you can continue to have an ongoing discussion with them and a dialogue. I think this is, once you do that, you set yourself up and start to Google proof yourself, because regardless of what ends up happening, and you can still have a way to communicate with people who want to buy your products and services. Number 18 is we want to look to create products to educate. Now, I used to sort of say this was optional, but I really feel this is where you need to be. Once you get those first 15 items checked off, you need to start creating valuable content. This idea of helpful content that your target market is looking for. This is what Google tries to do. Google tries to serve up the best and most relevant information that helps answer people's questions and queries when they come to Google. So if we can create content that helps to answer those questions, we're giving Google what they want and what they can then pass on to their users as well. So by creating products, it's a way for us to position you as the expert, and then we can take that content and chop it up into pieces and syndicate it around the web. So I think that's key. And number 19, and this is for some of my really high-level clients, we're actually talking about and working with this idea of authoring a book. And for those of you who've been keeping an eye on my newsletter, I've actually got a book underway myself for the authority content process. I think writing a book, it's one of the quickest and fastest ways to be recognized as an expert and a leader in your industry. So if we're creating products, we might as well take that and repurpose it into a book. And again, some of these things now towards the end, it's about expertise and leadership. And although Google doesn't necessarily have a way to measure this right now, there are side benefits that come off doing this. So if you write a book and then you start to get some coverage and some press and get the word out, obviously that's going to help raise your authority in Google. So it's not necessarily the act of publishing the book, but all of the byproduct that happens from it. And then the final one, point number 20 in this authority checklist, is to make sure that you're playing the long game. And I alluded to it earlier on, this idea that SEO has changed, and it does take more work to get the good results, and you need to be consistent. And that's really what your clients and prospects are looking for. When someone's thinking about doing business with you, they want to make sure that you're in it for the long haul and you've got their best interests at heart, and they can see that you've been consistently delivering over time. And that's what Google wants, that's what your clients want. So we want to come up with a process where you can consistently deliver on these 20 points in this authority checklist. Now, as I talked about, I'll give you the download link for this in a moment, but start to think about how your website stacks up. Go through each one of these steps, and if you get those first 15 in place, you're really going to be in the right position for the long term. If you don't fix this and you're not following the checklist, this is effectively what Google was saying earlier. They'll consider you irrelevant. They'll stop giving you traffic and visibility because you're not following their basic guidelines. They're giving it to us on a silver platter and basically saying, hey, if you follow these guidelines, you're going to be giving us what we want, because we know that you're not a fly-by-night, and we're going to reward you with these good rankings. So there's a real cost, and while I don't think that we're necessarily seeing it just now, as the algorithm starts to evolve and they move this EAT stage into more of an automated process, that's when we'll start to see more and more websites start to drop off. So that was kind of the first part in this Quality Raters guidelines. Now, there was a second part as well. The second part of the document really started to talk about, well, how do we analyze the search results pages, so the actual SERPs. And what they do is they outline, if you're looking for a particular search, so let's just say you're looking for Born Legacy, and you can see that as a top search there. What website comes up on that first page, and is it relevant for what the person's actually searching for? And they go through a process so that way they can weed out and filter out, even before someone gets to a website, are we serving up the right properties that help to match the user's intention? And I think that was the big insight here. Another great insight that they're giving us in this quality guidelines is the key to all of this is they're trying to get inside the user's head to understand what's their intention. If I searched Apple and I was typing that into Google, do I mean the computer company? Do I mean the fruit? Do I mean the person's name? Or do I actually mean the city in Oklahoma? Now, this interpretation, Google's now trying to pull a whole lot of data, everything that they can, and that's why they're trying to get more and more people onto things like Google Plus and using all of their different services so that they can learn as much about you as possible. So when you actually type in Apple, they can determine, okay, the intention behind this search was, the fruit. Okay, let's serve up that relevant information. So they have a series of another rating scale, and they'll give them different search results to go and search, and then they'll get them to rank them. But if we just come back to what it is that the real takeaway here is, it's absolutely critical to make sure that we match the user's intention. We need to get inside their head. We need to create content that helps answers their questions. And that's really what we're seeing, that great quality content is what's driving these search queries. So we need to think about, what's your content strategy? How are you consistently creating content and doing it in a way that really leverages what you are creating? I know content creation can be time consuming, but to start winning in Google, we need to be creating the highest quality content, preferably with the least amount of work. It's not enough that you go over to something like Need an Article and try and get a low quality piece of content. With these new quality guidelines and the way that they're assigning authoritativeness to a particular piece of content, and if you're assigning your name to something and it's low quality content, that's going to lower your reputation. So you need to be putting out the maximum quality content that you can, and I suggest that you do it in the most leveraged format. The way that I know, in this little screenshot you can see there, I talked about it, and there's a free presentation. It's on YouTube that you can go check out. It's a presentation that I ran at WordCamp in Melbourne, which was a big WordPress event, and this process of creating content is perhaps the best way that I know to do it with the least effort to get the maximum leverage. You basically run a little event and you get together your prospects or your clients and you put them in a room, or maybe in a surgery, or out at a stable. It really depends on your business. Don't get stuck into this idea that it needs to be a workshop in when you think of workshop like classroom style. It's really just about bringing together some people and putting on presentations or educating your clients and your target market about information that's important and relevant to them. That's kind of step one. Once you take that content, you chop it up into pieces, and then you syndicate it out over the web. And that's really at the heart of it. I mean, there's a free presentation, and I'll even give you the link where you can go check it out. That YouTube link there, or if you just Google WordCamp David Jennings on YouTube, it'll come up. That's the link there. If you combine that content strategy that I talked about with the 20-point authority content, the authority checklist that I'm going to give you the link to, that becomes this killer sort of a combo. It's almost unbeatable, and we're seeing some great results with it. It's something that I've proven time and time again for my own businesses, for clients' businesses, and if you follow that, I can guarantee it's going to double, triple, even quadruple your traffic and your conversion. It really is that powerful. It just depends on where your business is at and in what sort of stage in its development. I'm trying to now document and get as much proof that this works in a variety of different industries. And I want to help you take this next step. I want to show you how you can, if this is all starting to resonate with you and it makes sense, these 20 points to becoming an authority, and if you can understand, hey, we need to be creating content, because if you don't have a content strategy, you really don't have an SEO strategy. I want to actually take you through the process. I've basically perfected this system, and this system, it's something that we've applied to at the moment now to a few people. I've got Mike Rhodes and Troy Dean and Andrew Griffiths, some real experts in their space. I shared this idea with them. They absolutely loved it. They were already at the top of their game and they wanted to move through to the next level. So I said, hey, I can show you the way that I'm doing this. And it's worked so incredibly well for Andrew Griffiths that he actually wants to do it again. So he's got another workshop that's coming up that we're going to be taking through this authority content process and doing the killer combination of this 20-point checklist and then this content creation and syndication. I talked about it in the authority content workshop, and you may or may not have seen it. It really doesn't matter if you've gone through that workshop or not, but it takes someone from nowhere, not even being visible, not getting any sort of rankings or love from Google if someone's fallen out of love, and turns them into an industry leader in about 4 to 5 months if you follow the process. It depends on how quickly you can move. And I mean, the process, it's simple. There's 3 P's to it. It's you present this high quality content and you batch all of that content creation up into one little workshop. We then turn that into a product that helps to position you as an expert and an authority. And then we take that content and we chop it up and then we syndicate it out across the web. And I've basically taken this and perfected it even more. And now I'm turning it into a book. I believe in it so much, and we've got so many great results, particularly with these people that I'm working very closely with, and I want to get some case studies. That's why I'm reaching out to you. I actually posted something in my newsletter. A few of you actually saw it and responded to it. It became clear that I needed to help you out a little bit more. The case studies that I'm looking for, it doesn't have to be for a specific industry or name, or I'm even happy for it to come in as anonymous, as long as we can document the process. And I want to handhold you through the process of implementing this 20-point checklist and going through the authority content process. As I said, I mentioned something in the newsletter, and I actually got quite a few people respond, and it became clear. I think I lined up about 10 or 15 different calls with different people really keen to apply what I talked about in authority content. And it became clear, though, that they wanted that next step. They wanted someone to handhold them through that process. A lot of people go, oh yeah, but my business is different. It's not going to work for me because, you know, I'm not an Andrew Griffiths or a Troy Dean or a Mike Rhodes, but I know this works. I mean, we're working with a lot of our clients as well and taking them through this process. Just on the screen there, I've got a cosmetic surgeon that we're taking through the process. It doesn't matter if you're an online marketer or a locally based financial advisor, or if you own a retail shop, or maybe you've invented some ingenious product. It really doesn't matter. I think think at the Authority Content Workshop, we had a retail horse supply store, we had a print management company, we had a bridal advertising directory, we had a website that sells nappy cakes, we had web designers, and even SEO consultants came to check out this methodology. Just, I know it works. It's guaranteed to work if you work it. I want to, though, I suppose, have a little bit of a chat with you first, though, to make sure that, hey, we're going to be the right fit, and give you some different options as well on how we might be able to work together to take you through this process. I want to stack the deck in my favor when it comes to collecting these case studies. I've got a friend actually who runs an AdWords company, and what he does, he's got a little bit of a filtering process and criteria. He only works with clients if they're spending at least $5,000 on AdWords, because he knows if someone's spending $5,000 on AdWords, he can just go in, and a few of the minor tweaks that he makes to their account means that he'll more than save them the money that he ends up charging them. And I want to do something similar, where we need to have a little bit of a chat and make sure that the Authority content is going to work for you. If you've got a little bit of momentum, or if you've got a product and you're ready to go, and it's ideal if you have a list as well, this can work incredibly well. And the way that we can determine if it's going to be a good fit, I've got a couple of different options. It's really easy. First step, we'll just book a consult with me. We'll chat for 30 minutes to find out if it's going to be right for you. We'll talk about where you are and where you want to go, and if Authority content is going to be right for you, and if it's going to be the quickest and most cost-effective way for you to start marketing yourself online. And if we're the right fit, there's going to be three options. Either you can do it yourself and you can actually implement the strategies, and if you've got questions, all you have to do is ask me. I'll walk you through this 20-point checklist, and we'll also show you how to take the content and syndicate it out. Again, the real purpose here is to get the actual case study. So whether or not you do it with me, or if you do it on your own, it doesn't really matter. But that's one of the options that will come out from our 30-minute discussion. Or you can do it with me. I'm going to put together a coaching group where we're going to go for 5 months, and I'm going to coach you through the entire process. We're going to chat fortnightly. I'm going to give you set instructions on each one of these calls. We'll give you goals and checklists and accountability. It's going to be a real mastermind group, and we'll meet together on a regular basis. We'll keep the group small, so that way you get some real sort of quality, close contact, and I can manage you through that whole process to make sure that we get you the result, make sure that we build you up as the authority in your space, make sure that we can double and triple your traffic and significantly improve your conversion rate and take your business through to the next level. Or if you want it done for you, that's also another option as well. We are doing that at the moment. We probably need to have a bit more of a discussion about that one. I want to make sure if we're going to do it completely for you, I want to make sure that you're already doing well, that you've already got momentum. I've seen this methodology. It can break a business. The amount of new business that it brings in can be tremendous. So if you don't have everything lined up, it can actually do more harm than good. So we want to have that discussion first. Make sure that you're well set up. If we just turn the floodgates on, that you're going to be ready for it. So those are the three options. You can have a 30-minute chat with me, and then you'll either do it yourself, you can do it with me, or it'll be done for you. This window of opportunity, though, it's only small. I want to get this book out. I'm currently working with my ghostwriter as we speak. He's based in the UK, and he's given me this task to collect some of these case studies to include in the book at the end of the book. As I mentioned, I popped something in my newsletter and had 3 people that have already stuck their hand up and said, yep, I'm in. I want to go for this coaching program. I can see that you walk the walk. I can see that you're applying this stuff, and I can see how good it works, and I want to work with you and go through that process. So I've got 3 booked in. I'm thinking we probably want to keep that group small, like I was saying. So I don't think we can take more than 10 people. So if it's something that you're interested in, go ahead and we can register for the consult, and then we can take it from there. I suppose in the tail end of this presentation, you need to just start to realize that the web is changing, and doing nothing is not an option. As Google said, and Eric Schmidt said, if you don't update what you're doing, if you don't build yourself up as an authority, in a year or 2 years' time, you'll be considered irrelevant in the eyes of Google. You'll be dropped from further into the index within Google. You won't be visibility. You won't get visibility. So the question is, if you don't do this, whether it's with me or whether if it's on your own, how much is it actually going to cost you? I think one of my skills is to be able to spot trends. And this is a huge trend that's coming. The writing's on the wall. So you need to start moving now. I know you, and if you're on this webinar, you've already recognized that things are changing, and you've probably had enough of chasing different loopholes and wasting time working on something that you're just one algorithm update away from everything caving in on itself. I know that feeling. I've heard that feeling. It's, this isn't another Facebook gimmick or a Twitter quick fix or something like that, building on some Instagram loophole. This is a better way of doing things. It builds on a fundamental system that I've been developing over the past 10 years, and I believe in this 100%. I know it works if you're going to work with it. So you don't need to tell me why you're here. I know why you're here, and I know you recognize how important it is to get that visibility on Google, and how important it is to get good lead flow for your business. Getting good lead flow, highly qualified traffic, is the lifeblood of all business. You don't need to tell me how good Google used to be and how awesome it was, and now it's not. You might have even tried countless methods to try and get back in Google's good books. I know how it feels. I had to get in there and sort of really search and go, hey, I can see the way. I've proven it now, and I'm focusing. I'm on the right track. I feel so confident in this methodology. You might see, when you're in the thick of it, sometimes it's hard to find the time. You're probably busy delivering on your products and services, and you're thinking, oh, how can I add another thing into the mix? Probably you come home at the end of the day exhausted because you're just spinning your wheels, and you try and debrief to someone, get them to understand, but they don't understand the web. They don't know how hard it is to run a business. You need to make sure that you're focusing on things and get a good support group around you that can coach you through this. So that way you can start to make the steps in the right direction. I know entrepreneurs, I take my hat off to you. Entrepreneurs are some of the hardest working people in the world. You just need to make sure that you start working on the right things. If you're looking for a simple, straightforward solution that you can follow, that's going to stand the test of time, that really builds on the fundamentals, that's what this is about, and that's what I can help you with. So let's make it happen together. I think the next step, if you want to go ahead, you can download the authority content checklist. You can head over to that URL just there. It's authoritycontent.com/consult. And on that page, you'll be able to download that authority checklist and go through and have a look on your website and see how your website rates up. You'll also be able to download the 160-page Google Quality Raters guidelines that we've gone through, and you'll see how I've pulled out the most important things. Once you're on that page as well, I suggest you go ahead and register for that 30-minute consult. Let's have a little bit of a chat. As soon as you register, within 24 hours, my personal assistant will touch base with you and look to line up a time for us to chat. She'll also send through just a little bit of extra information about those 3 options, whether or not you want to do it yourself, or you want to do it with me, or you want it done for you. If you're looking to do it with me and you want to do the coaching program, that coaching program, the first session is starting at the end of next week. We need to get moving on this now. There is a little bit of a time and a process that goes into getting this done, so I want to make sure that you start moving on it. I'll obviously send you a little bit more information, and then we'll look to line up a chat as soon as we can. So that's the 4 steps. You can go download, register for the consult. I'll send you some more information, and my PA will line up a time for us to chat. And Yeah, really looking forward to working with you. That's the tail end. I wanted to make sure we kept it right to the 1 hour, and I hope you got a lot of valuable insights. True to my typical form, I was like a machine gun and covered a lot of different topics. We might just see in the last little bit, I'll see if Camille's still about.